Welcome back. This is lesson 6.5, distance, rate, and time. I will be able to correctly find the missing distance, rate, or time for a given situation if I know the other two. Okay, vocabulary for this lesson. Conversion factor. That's when we can multiply by the same two different units that are equal to each other. Example, 1 foot over 3 or 12 inches would be a conversion factor because these are equal to each other, but they're in different units. Unit analysis is when we use conversion factors to cancel out units to get the unit we want. And distance is how far we travel. All right, so here, what does it mean that the speed limit is 80 miles per hour on the freeway? It means we can travel 80 miles in 1 hour. It is a rate of speed. So look, we're just looking at a ratio comparing 80 miles to 1 hour. We have different units here. So 80 miles would be the total distance that you travel, and this would be the time. So distance divided by time gives you your rate of speed. So the whole thing is a rate. This is just your distance, and this is just your time. All right, how can we use that to help us figure stuff out? Let's see. Use what you know to figure out missing values for each situation. Use a proportion to solve. So we're just setting up a proportion so that we can make sense of this. So we are comparing in this one. Kara runs 16 miles in 5 hours. We're comparing miles to hours here. So let's put together what we know. 16 miles to 5 hours. So if that's the case, I gotta put miles up here and hours down here. So if it wants her rate of speed in miles per hour, per means for 1. So that tells me right here I want for 1 hour. So this is where we're really just finding a unit rate in this case. So what would I do to 5 to make it 1? I'm going to divide it by 5. So what do we have to do up here? We have to divide it by 5 as well. So let's do 16 divided by 5 and see what we get. 5 goes into 16 3 times, minus 15 gives me 1. We can go to decimals because we can have parts of a mile. 5 goes into 10 2 times, so 0.2 minus 10 gives me 0. So in other words, she is traveling 3.2 miles each hour. So what did we just find? We found her rate of speed because now we have it in miles per hour. All right, how about this one? A rocket can travel 8 kilometers per second. Okay, we know this part. 8 kilometers per second means for 1 second. So we have a speed. Now we're just going to use that to help us figure out how long it would take the rocket to travel 256 kilometers. Okay, kilometers is on top, so I'm going to put kilometers on top over here. 256, what is it we don't know? We don't know this guy over here, but we know it's going to be in seconds. So we need to figure out what happened to go from 8 to 256. Okay, obviously it's gotten bigger, so in order to figure out what happened, I'm going to be timesing, or it was times. So to think backwards what happened, I'm going to divide to see what it was multiplied by. So 256 divided by 8. 8 doesn't go into 2, but 8 will go into 25. 8 goes into 25 3 times minus 24 gives me 1. Bring this down. 6. 8 goes into 16 2 times. Minus 16 gives me 0. So it's been traveling for, this has been multiplied by 32, which means this is multiplied by 32. And 1 times 32 would give me 32 seconds. So to answer this question, 32 seconds. You can see how the proportion helps us see that. All right, Fred's dog runs at a speed of 30 miles per hour. Okay, we're comparing 30 miles to 1 hour. Per hour means for 1. So we know one side of this. That means this is going to be miles. This one's going to be hours. It says, if his dog ran for 3 minutes, how far did he run? No, wait a minute. This said per hour, and this says for 30 minutes. So I can't be working with this if I want to know in minutes. However, this is where I can do a little bit of thinking. How many minutes are in 1 hour? 60. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 60 here. 60 minutes. Do you guys understand how I changed that? I'm just replacing it with something I know that is equivalent to it. But since I want to know for 3 minutes, I need this one to also be in minutes. They have to be in the same unit. Okay, now what I have to do, if his dog ran for 3 minutes, how far did his dog run? I got to figure out what I need to do to 60 to get to 3. So what happened to 60 to get to 3? Well, it was divided because it went smaller, right? But by how much? Some of you can do it in your head. Some of us can't. I'm going to do 60 divided by 3 and see what I get. 3 goes into 6 2 times. Minus 6 gives me 0. Bring down the 0. 3 goes into 0. 0 times. So in other words, this has been divided by 20. So if that's been divided by 20, I'm going to divide this one by 20 to figure out what I get. So 30 divided by 20 . 20 goes into 30 one time, minus 20 gives me 10. And next a decimal and a 0, because I can have parts of a minute, or parts of a mile. 20 goes into 105 times. Don't forget your decimal in your answer, because we put a decimal here. Minus 100, sorry, that's getting really small, gives me 0. So he ran 1.5 miles in that 3 minutes. That's a pretty dang fast dog. Okay. Now, if rate is equal to distance divided by time, then how can we create a formula to find distance? I like to remember DIRT. Distance equals rate times time. Distance equals rate times time. So we just used our ratio reasoning on those proportions to figure them out. But we can also use this equation. So distance equals rate times time. So let's use this to solve these ones. Alonzo runs an average speed of 4.5. I think that's supposed to say miles there. 4.5 miles per hour. If she ran 1.5 miles this morning, how long did she run? Okay, what do we know? Do we know the distance, the rate, or the time? We know her distance because that's how far she ran. So I'm going to write 1.5 equals rate. We know her speed, which is the rate. So I'm going to put 4.5 right here. Times the time. Do we know how long? No, that's what it's asking us. How long did she run? So I'm going to put T here for time. Okay, think back to when we were doing like those percent equations. When we were multiplying to something unknown, we can't do it, so we have to go backwards. So what are we going to do? We're going to take this side and we're going to divide it by what's happening here to undo this multiplication. So I'm going to rewrite this by dividing this, so 1 1/2 divided by 4 1/2, and that's going to equal our time. We're just rearranging our equation for how we have to think about it. All right, now I know how to divide fractions. I'm going to turn this improper, so 3 over 2. I'm going to turn this improper. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 9. 1 is 9, so this would be 9 over 2. That would be the division, but keep the first. Flip the second, so that'd be 2, 9. Change the sign to multiply. Cross cancel here. 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 2 once. Well, that made it not so bad. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. So what does that mean? What time were we talking about? We were talking about hours. So how long did it take her? It took her 1/3 of an hour. All right, let's try this one. Tyrell's plane flew 2,580 miles in 6 hours. What was the average speed of the plane? Okay, do we know distance, rate, or time? We know that the total distance was 2,580. So distance equals rate. I don't know the speed. That's what it's asking for. So I don't know the rate, but I do know how long it took. It took 6 hours. Distance equals rate times time. So what do I need to do here? Rate times time. This was multiplied to get this by 6. So to rewrite this, 2,580 equals, or not equals, divided by 6 is going to equal my rate. So if I divide 2,580 by 6, 6 goes into 2, no it doesn't, 6 goes into 25, 4 times minus 24. It's going to leave me with 1, bring down the 8. 6 goes into 18 3 times, minus 18 gives me 0, but I got to keep going because there's still another place value. 6 goes into 0 0 times, and we are done. So how fast is that plane going? 430 miles per hour. All right, let's try this one. A bird migrates at an average speed of 36 miles per day. If the bird has flown for 12 1/4 days, how far did it fly in total? Okay, distance, do we know it? No. How far did it fly in total? That's asking me a distance, so I'm going to put D for distance. I don't know it right now. We know its rate is 36 miles per day. And we know the time it's been flying is 12 1/4 days. Now this one, they're on the same side. I can multiply these to figure out the distance. These other ones, we had an unknown with our multiplication, which is why we had to undo it by dividing. So I'm just going to have to times these. So when I'm timesing fractions, I want a mixed number in its improper form. So 12 times 4 is 48, plus 1 is 49. So I've got 49 over 4. I'm going to times that by 36 over 1. Cross cancel if I can. Oh, luckily we can. 4 goes into 36 nicely. Give me 9. So 49 times 9. 9 times 9 is 81. Regroup 8. 9 times 4 is 36. 36 plus 8. 7, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. So what's the total distance that bird has been flying? 441 miles. That's a lot of miles. All right, Rate yourself on this concept. How do you feel about finding distance, rate, or time? Rate yourself, take a picture, and turn it in on your passport in Google Classroom.